You ever just stop and think, like really think, about how you know you're conscious? I mean, you know you are. I know I am. It's kind of a weird thing to think about too much. But you've got thoughts, feelings, you experience the world, right?
Yeah.
You see the people you love, your family, friends, strangers even, and you just assume they're conscious too.
Right.
But have you ever thought about when that actually begins for a person?
Mm.
Like, when does that being aware thing actually start?
It's a big question, isn't it?
It's huge. And the thing is, neuroscience hasn't really dug deep into this until pretty recently, like the last 10, maybe 20 years.
There's almost a taboo subject for science. Leave that to the philosophers kind of thing.
Totally. But things are changing, and that's what we're diving into today.
We are.
This whole new field of neuroscience that's trying to figure out when consciousness begins, not just for babies after they're born, but even before, when they're still in the womb.
It's a pretty wild stuff.
Weird and wonderful is how one article put it.
Uh-huh.
So today we're going to look at some of this cutting-edge research. We've got some great sources to work with, insights from neuroscientists like Dr. Joel Froelich, and some philosophical framing from Professor Tim Bain. We're going to try and shed some light on this really fundamental question. When does consciousness begin?
And it's not as simple as finding a single on-off switch.
Right, like flicking a light switch and boom, you're conscious.
Exactly. Think of it more like a complex network, slowly coming online, different parts connecting and lighting up over time.
I like that analogy. It's like the internet, not a light bulb. So how are scientists even approaching this? It can't be easy to measure consciousness, especially in babies and fetuses.
Well, that's where this cluster-based approach comes in, which Froelich and Bain have been developing.
Right. Cluster-based. Okay. What is that?
Instead of looking for one big sign, like a specific brainwave that suddenly appears, they look for a bunch of smaller indicators, all pointing in the same direction.
A cluster of clues.
Right. And using this approach, they've found evidence that babies are conscious by at least 5 months of age.
Wow, 5 months. So that means they're not just awake and reacting, they're actually experiencing the world around them.
It seems that way. They're aware of their surroundings, engaging with them. It's not just basic brainstem function, it's a higher level of processing.
That's fascinating. But what about before 5 months? Are there any hints of consciousness even earlier?
Well, there's definitely some interesting stuff happening.
Like what?
Younger babies might not show the full cluster of indicators, but they do display some of the individual markers. And even more intriguing, some of these mini markers seem to be present in fetuses.
Oh, hold on. So even before birth, there might be signs of consciousness. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. It suggests the foundation for consciousness might be laid down much earlier than we previously thought.
So what are some of these early clues that scientists are finding? What should our listeners keep an ear out for?
One of the big ones is something called the default mode network.
Default mode network. That sounds pretty technical.
It is, but it's also something your brain is doing all the time.
Really?
Yep. It's the activity in a network of brain regions that becomes really active when you're at rest, daydreaming, thinking about the past or future, when your mind is just wandering.
Oh, yeah, I do that a lot. So that's my default mode network in action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is that fMRI scans show a basic form of this network is present even in newborn babies.
So even though they're just kind of lying there, their brains are already busy at work, processing information and maybe even daydreaming.
Potentially. It suggests that even from the very beginning, our brains aren't just passively absorbing information. They're actively engaging with it, even internally.
That's pretty amazing. Are there other clues like this that we should know about?
Definitely. Another one is called the local global effect.
Okay, local global effect. Break that down for me.
Imagine you hear a sequence of beeps, right? Beep, 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 beep. You'd probably start to anticipate that louder beep beep at the end of each sequence.
Yeah, totally. It becomes a pattern.
Exactly. Now, what if the sequence suddenly changed to just beep, 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 beep? Even though there's no single louder beep anymore, your brain still notices that the overall pattern has changed.
I think I get it. It's like my brain expects the pattern to continue, and when it doesn't, I notice the difference.
Precisely. And according to Froelich, this ability to detect these changes, even in overall patterns, suggests working memory and potentially consciousness at work.
He's seen this in newborns, right?
He has, which is already pretty remarkable.
Okay.
But then, researchers at the University of Tübingen in Germany took it even further. They used magnetoencephalography, which measures the magnetic fields produced by the brain's electrical activity.
So they're basically listening to the brain's magnetic whispers.
You could say that. And they found evidence of this local global effect in late-term fetuses.
No way. So even before birth, the brain is already processing patterns and noticing when those patterns are disrupted.
It seems so. It's like they're already learning and making sense of the world around them, even in the womb.
That's incredible. But how do they even measure something like that in a fetus? It seems incredibly difficult.
It is. Getting a clear signal from a fetal brain through the mother's body and all the surrounding tissues is a huge challenge. But researchers are using some amazing techniques like ultrasound and magnetoencephalography to overcome these hurdles.
It's like they're developing new tools to listen to these tiny signals from within the womb.
It's pretty remarkable what they're able to do.
So we've got this default mode network that's active from birth, maybe even before. And we've got the brain processing patterns, even in fetuses. Are there any signs that babies or even fetuses are interacting with the world around them, like paying attention to things?
That's a great question, and there's some really interesting research on this.
Tell me more.
You know how by about 4 months old, babies can choose where they want to look and focus their attention?
Yeah, they start getting really curious about everything.
Exactly. But a study in 2017 found that fetuses might be capable of directing their attention even before birth.
How did they figure that out?
Researchers at the University of Lancaster shown patterns of light, shaped kind of like faces, into the uterus.
Light up faces.
Not exactly faces as we see them, but patterns that resemble them. And they used ultrasound to see how the fetuses reacted.
What happened?
The fetuses actually turned their heads to look at these light patterns.
Wow, that's amazing. So even in the womb, they're drawn to these face-like stimuli.
It seems so. And to make it even more convincing, another group of researchers in Torino, Italy, replicated the study.
So it wasn't just a fluke.
Right. They tracked the fetus's eye movements and confirmed that they were moving their eyes to follow the light patterns.
So they were definitely looking towards those shapes, not just randomly moving around.
Exactly. Now, we can't know for sure what the fetuses were actually perceiving, whether they saw a clear image of a face or just a change in light and shadow.
Right, it's not like we can ask them, hey, what do you see?
Not yet. But the fact that they consistently turned towards these face-like patterns is very suggestive. It hints at some level of sensory processing and directed attention even before birth.
This is all so fascinating. So we've got the default mode network, the local global effect, and now this evidence of fetuses paying attention to stimuli. It seems like a pretty strong case for some level of consciousness, or at least the very beginnings of it, being present much earlier than we might have thought.
I think so too. These different findings, all pointing in the same direction, paint a picture of consciousness as a gradual and continuous development, rather than a sudden awakening.
It's like a dimmer switch slowly turning up, not a light switch being flipped on.
A perfect analogy.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the science, but I think it's important to address the elephant in the room. When we talk about consciousness before birth, it inevitably raises ethical questions, especially regarding abortion.
Absolutely. It's an important conversation to have.
But it's also crucial to remember that the research we've been discussing primarily focuses on the last trimester of pregnancy.
That's an essential point for listeners to keep in mind.
And there's a good biological reason why the kind of consciousness we've been talking about, the one that involves experiencing the external world through our senses, is unlikely to occur much before the third trimester.
That's right. It has to do with the thalamus.
The thalamus, okay. Remind us what that is again.
Think of the thalamus as the gateway to consciousness. It's a relay station in the brain that takes sensory information from our body and senses and sends it up to the cerebral cortex, which handles higher-level processing.
So it's like the central hub for all our senses.
Exactly. And the key point is that the thalamus doesn't form those essential connections with the cerebral cortex until around 24 to 26 weeks of gestation, which marks the beginning of the third trimester.
So before that, the brain isn't really wired up to process external sensory information in a way that would allow for conscious experience.
Right. The physical infrastructure for that kind of consciousness isn't fully in place yet.
No, this research isn't just about understanding babies and pregnancy. It has much broader implications, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's especially relevant when we consider the rise of artificial intelligence.
Right. AI is becoming so sophisticated, so capable, that the question of whether or not these systems are conscious is becoming increasingly pressing.
And the insights we're gaining from studying the development of consciousness in humans could be crucial for evaluating consciousness in AI.
So by understanding how our own consciousness emerges, we might be able to recognize it in other forms, even if those forms are made of silicon and algorithms instead of flesh and blood.
It's a fascinating possibility. Froelich even suggests developing a theory of consciousness based on the criteria we're identifying in human development.
A universal framework for consciousness applicable to any system, whether biological or artificial. That's pretty profound.
It is. It could be the key to answering one of the biggest questions of our time.
Mhm.
What does it truly mean to be conscious?
So, what started as a question about babies has taken us on a journey through the depths of neuroscience, the ethics of pregnancy, and even the future of artificial intelligence.
It's amazing how interconnected these big questions really are.
It is, and it all goes back to this fundamental mystery of consciousness, this inner experience of being aware that we all take for granted. It's incredible to think that scientists are just now beginning to unravel its secrets.
And I think for our listeners, the takeaway here isn't just about babies or AI. It's about recognizing that consciousness, this thing that feels so essential to who we are, is still a vast and largely unexplored frontier.
A frontier that science is actively mapping one discovery at a time.
Exactly. And as you continue to think about this, consider this. If consciousness emerges gradually through the development of brain networks and the ability to process and respond to the world around us, what does that tell us about the nature of consciousness itself?
What does it mean to be aware? What does it mean to experience the world?
And how might that understanding shape how we recognize and value consciousness in all its forms, whether biological or artificial, now and in the future? It's a question that goes far beyond the scope of this deep dive, but one that's worth pondering as we continue to explore the universe and our place within it.
Absolutely. It's a question for all of us to keep asking as we learn more about ourselves and the world around us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.